Solution Talk, Green Charging to Boost the Energy Transition, please welcome onto the stage Michael Scott from Reuters.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Scott from Reuters. I've been a sustainability journalist for 20 years, and we're here to talk about green charging and its role in the energy transition. The rollout of electric vehicles is transforming the transport landscape in Europe and around the world. But for EVs to decarbonise the sector, they need charging infrastructure, something that has had to be built from scratch, and that presents challenges to grid operators and utilities. At the same time, that infrastructure, if it's used properly, can support grid stability and help consumers to decarbonise their own electricity use, both at home and on the road. This session will give an insight into existing approaches to electric mobility and the challenges it faces. The discussion involves different players of the ecosystem, from industry, civil society and the energy sector, who will explore the challenges in scaling up green charging and vehicle-to-grid technology, the skills shortage and the development of industry standards. I'll quickly introduce the speakers and then we'll get into the debate. Eva Greiner is Chief Technology Officer for Mercedes-Benz Mobility. She's been with the company for 25 years and has been responsible for shaping its electric mobility strategy since 2019. As CTO, she's leading the development of a global high-quality EV charging network. Sanjay Seth is Senior Director of the Sustainable Infrastructure Programme at India's Energy and Resources Institute and CEO of the Green Rating for Integrated Habitat Assessment Council, which manages India's green building rating system. Previously, he held leadership roles at the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, where he was responsible for national energy efficiency programs and international collaborations. Gustav Nygrén is Global Key Account Manager at EKOenergy, a global non-profit ecolabel for renewable energy. He supports companies in integrating sustainable energy solutions into their operations and reporting. He also helps to channel funding into renewable energy projects in underserved regions, contributing to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Eva, we'll start with you. Perhaps you can explain to us what Mercedes-Benz is doing in relation to charging and why. After all, you're a car maker, not a charging provider, and we don't see Mercedes-Benz branded gas stations along the highways and auto routes. So why get involved in charging, and what is it that you're actually doing?
Well, good day, everybody. I'm thrilled actually to talk about this. We at Mercedes-Benz, we believe that electric mobility is a way to a sustainable and zero-emission future. And charging is part. You cannot drive an electric car and not have a solution for charging. And it's also part of what we call the luxury experience. So we want to make sure we have the most desirable cars, but also the most compelling charging solutions, no matter if you're driving in public, like on the go, or you're at home, or even at work. So we're providing solutions wherever you are, and electric mobility and charging goes hand in hand. And it's also enabled us to make new partnerships with players like we have here on the panel, because we now have two industries meet, the automotive industry and the energy, and we have to co-create the future together.
Okay. And there's been a lot of talk about the fact that EV charging has the potential to put enormous strains on electricity networks. But EVs have also been described as batteries on wheels. They're a significant source of energy storage, and they have the ability to provide demand for renewable energy outside of peak times to allow that energy to be used more efficiently. So what is the potential for vehicle-to-grid technology, and how can it help to make the grid more resilient?
Well, a vehicle, it's called in Germany, it's called a driving or moving thing. It's actually sitting 95% of the time. It's sitting somewhere, and the battery of a vehicle roughly has between 80 and 100 kilowatt hours. So if you have a battery at home, that's probably around 10 to 20 kilowatt hours. So that car battery is massive, and the car is sitting a lot of times. So you can use this car battery to buffer energy. So whenever there's a lot of renewable energy in the system, you can put it into the car, And we're working hard to enable, with all the industries and also the regulations, that the car can also feed energy back into the grid. Meaning if there is a need or no renewable energy, you can still use it, and your car has a completely new purpose because it's also an energy device.
Great. Sanjay, I'll turn to you now. I think there's often an assumption that charging infrastructure will just appear out of nowhere, because the fueling infrastructure for internal combustion engine cars for us is just there. But obviously, that was built at some point. This has to be built, and that requires a certain set of skills. You know, there are going to be thousands, if not millions, of charge points going in different countries. So, what are the skills that are needed to bring about this charging revolution, and are they readily available at the moment?
Thank you, and it's such a pleasure to be here at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. As you know that we are, in fact, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and that puts a lot of pressure on our development activities, with energy being the prime mover. And then obviously the pressures on us are to kind of move towards cleaner energy transition. How do we switch to cleaner energy transitions? And especially there is a lot of emphasis which the government of India is laying on cleaner mobility, both on the passenger side as well as on the freight movement. And switch to electric mobility is something which is there. Now, obviously, when you're going to have the ambitious, I mean, these are not committed targets, but we have set ourselves goals of about 30% move, across all segments of mobility by 2030. Now, if that be the case, you need commensurate charging infrastructure to be put in place. Currently, if I am not off the mark, we have about 26,000 or 27,000 charging stations pan-India. And obviously, this needs to be, pushed up in a big way. So on one side, the charging infrastructure, which is being done both by the OEMs as well as with the government's initiatives. But at the same time, it also requires that this charging infrastructure should be up and running, which requires skills. You should have adequate manpower. So whether it is training, the vocational training, whether it is O&M, people that are equipped with O&M, capabilities to make sure that this is running, and they are also not only running, but they are efficiently running. So those are things which are there. So there are programs which have been developed with the Mercedes-Benz. We are doing a great program on NCVT, which we are the National Council for Vocational Training. So along with one of the premier institutes in technology, that is the Indian Institute of Technology, we've come together, all three of them, as an ecosystem, to make sure that the skills that are required to support the charging infrastructure that is put in place. So there are a number of programs which we have, which are currently on. I have a long list here, but yes, it's ranging from IoT-enabled software to maintenance and troubleshooting, to making sure that the payment gateways work efficiently, service quality optimization, and then, of course, interpersonal skills. All of them, they are covered under the gambit of this entire ecosystem.
So are these skills that were being taught anyway, or have you had to sort of introduce them as new things onto curricula?
No, so a lot of them are there, but we need to tweak them,
Right.
Especially when we have, as I said, that we have one of the largest renewable energy programs globally. So the aspirations of making sure that these grids function, when they are the infrastructure is in place, all of them needs to be up and running. So the skills are being developed around that. But specifically, if you look at the mobility, which is not something which is going to be very different, but of course, you need a little bit of tweaking to make sure that the requirements are, kind of met there as well.
Yeah.
So all of that is there, and as I said, that there are programs which have been created specifically for all of that. It's the Sustainability Garage program with the support of Mercedes-Benz Research and Development in India. We are currently involved in curricle development with India's premier technical institution, that is the Indian Institute of Technology, and it is towards training 60 candidates each year as charge point operators. So EV charge point operators is the curriculum, and we are making sure that this gets credible, the stamp and what you call the recognition by the government of India, so that it brings in credibility to once these people have professionally taken up the program for training.
Right. Yeah. Yes. 26,000 chargers doesn't sound like many for a country the size of India.
So we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, indeed. Gustav, can you tell us a bit about what EKOenergy does and why energy eco labels are important?
Yeah, sure. And also thanks for being here, and it's a pleasure to be here today with you all. Well, EKOenergy is eco-label for renewable energy. And when it comes to eco-labels, it's like a mark of quality. And if we look at EKOenergy, then the criteria is quite clear. First and foremost, it's of course 100% renewable energy. And on top of that, we also want to take nature and biodiversity into account. So we have added criteria for that. So we check that the power plants, often solar and wind, that they are outside of key biodiversity areas. So that's the second criteria. And besides this, we also want to contribute and be a tool for companies and energy users to support a just transition. So as you can see there on the picture and on the slide, for every megawatt hour of EKOenergy labeled energy, we also collect a minimum of 10 euro cents to our climate fund. So for example, in Mercedes-Benz case, in the green charging, so for every megawatt hour that companies and people charge their electrical vehicles, then 10 euro cents go to our climate fund. And this climate fund is then funding renewable energy projects in mid to low income countries, supporting many of the sustainable development goals.
Okay. So when it comes to EV charging specifically, how do eco labels help? Is it just about ensuring that energy is renewable and sort of high quality?
Yeah, it's a mark of the quality of what's in the energy and where is it sourced. But eco labels also can work as a tool to do more and amplify the positive impacts of green charging. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Eva, when it comes to EVs, as in so many other clean technology areas, China is leading the way, including in the development of vehicle-to-grid projects at some scale. What are the key challenges and bottlenecks when it comes to rolling out V2G, and how is that happening in China and elsewhere?
I think it's interesting that you mentioned it because China is taking a different approach right now than the rest of the world, I would say. What you need to combine like the two industries, you need the technology, you also need the rules and regulations that's still in development, also in China. And then you need to go step by step. So there is a lot of microgrids happening right now in China. They are testing out, and a smaller microgrid means that you have in an urban environment, you test combining the vehicle with the energy grid and doing what we call netzdienliches Laden, like network-friendly charging. The next level would then be to even feed back from the vehicle into the grid. In China, we expect like all those pilot phases until 2030, and then we expect the regulation to actually scale. And it needs to go hand in hand because we are business with also like incentives for the company, but also for the customer. So in China, we are still developing what we call spot markets, where energy prices are actually differing. In Germany or in Europe, we have this already. So there it's attractive that you feed in energy when it's cheap and you sell energy when it's more expensive. That makes a business and also is enjoyable for the customer because you get mobility for free.
Yeah.
China, we'll see. Right now they're very careful in how they're doing step by step. But it's interesting to see.
Yeah.
We might even have a chance here to be ahead of the curve.
Indeed. And you mentioned these microgrids, and that's a different approach to just sort of time of day charging and taking it out of the national network. How does V2G fit in with decentralized grids in countries where there's still a lack of access to energy? For example, in Africa, could this be a way of allowing them to sort of leapfrog in their development and increase access to energy through the use of electric vehicles?
Well, considering what Gustav just showed, I think there is a chance that we have smaller solar entities, combine them with some energy buffers, batteries, and then we have charging infrastructure, and they could be decentralized and local. So I think it would be interesting projects. If they can go to scale, you would have those charging spots, and they would be autark in the world.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that this is about two industries coming together, automotive and energy. So that requires a whole lot of collaboration, not just between those two sectors, but national governments, local governments. Who are the key players in this? How good is that collaboration, and how does it need to improve?
I would say it's a good collaboration. Everybody wants to make this work, so it's good. And we are deeply convinced also, looking at Gustav, that we want renewable energy to be put into our EVs. Otherwise, the whole shift to electromobility doesn't make sense. So we are pushing actively for more renewable energy. We are proud to work with ecolabels as EKOenergy, just to make sure that every time you charge, it is green energy. But then we need, as you say, we need all the governments, we need the industries, we need also the networks to work with us, to digitize the networks that you can actually steer and control and go into the smart charging area. So it's not an easy walk, but I'm positive that until the end of the decade, we will see massive progress.
Okay. And Sanjay, on that same theme, when it comes to developing the skills that are needed to sustain this switch to electric mobility, to what extent is this a mobility-only issue, and to what extent are these sort of transferable skills that will have benefits in the wider economy as well?
Yeah, so, especially when you're looking at, one is, of course, the ecosystem that is around mobility, and the other is around, as they mentioned about grids being there. So there are two separate ecosystems that need to be talking to each other to make sure that that the skill sets are developed together and not in isolation, and that's where the challenge is. And if you look at it, there are similarities between the two sides, and it is just that we need to make sure that so while the regulatory frameworks are there, the frameworks for implementation need to be backed up, and together with skill development programs. So all of that needs to, that entire ecosystem needs to be working like a well-oiled machinery to make sure that your actual, your ultimate intent is met. And they are pretty much similar. They do talk to each other. It's not that they work in isolation. So that is where I think the efforts, both from the government as well as from the OEMs, are there, including the people who are responsible for grid management. All of them, they are working together, and we hope in a country like ours, which is huge, and fortunately for us, we don't have too much of a problem as far as manpower is concerned, with one being the most populous country in the world. But getting the right kind of skill sets is something where the efforts are being put in, and programs are being rolled out. And there is this aspirations that we have for ourselves that by 2047, that is by the time when we complete 100 years of our independence, we hope to be seen as a developed country, and that's where the benchmarks are. So all out efforts are being made both by government and industry to make sure that these aims or these benchmarks are ultimately achieved.
Sure. And the chargers, as we've mentioned, are part of a whole ecosystem. So are there other skills that are needed beyond those which are needed for the charger network to integrate it into the the wider energy system and the wider economy and infrastructure of a country, particularly in a country such as India, which is developing so quickly?
Yeah. So as I said, look, electricity and mobility, they would be two sides of the same coin. It's not too far away. And, it's a little bit of tweaking that is required, specifically to suit the industry, that is the automotive industry. But not that when we have a huge amount of grid that is being added, especially a lot of capacity which is being added through renewables resources, then both of them can walk together to make sure that the skills are there. And it's effort. So both within, as I said, within the automotive industry, as well as outside as far as the clean energy sector is concerned, or the energy domain is concerned, both of them, I think they are, again, two sides of the same coin.
Sure.
Not too much of effort, but yes, you need to put in things in place so that credibility gets enhanced. Otherwise, if things are not credible, then unfortunately, it'll just come down, it'll collapse. So you need to make sure that there is credibility, and that can happen through good certification programs.
I was going to ask about that. Are there sort of standards being developed to ensure that the rollout is the same across the whole country?
Yes. So that's the idea, that the regulators which are responsible for rolling out the vocational training programs, they recognize the training needs assessments of different players in the ecosystem need to be identified. Where are the gaps that are there in the market currently, and how do we tailor make programs which are backed up by the government of India, or to make sure that they become credible, and then roll them out pan-India, so that across, there is synergies across the country as far as systems are in place.
Sure. And Eva, Sanjay's talked about India being able to roll out grids and electric mobility at the same time. How is it different in places like Europe, where you've got an electricity system in place, that a legacy system that's been there for 50 years or more? How is it different dealing with a system that's already there but is specifically not set up to deal with electric vehicles?
Well, I think you have the chance, if you can start greenfield, you have the chance, as Sanjay just said, to build it up together, hand in hand, and qualify it together and define also roles and responsibilities. If you go into more like a brownfield situation like we have in Europe, then we have to learn like who is now steering what. The car industry wants to have the right to say this is when we charge, but also the energy colleagues want to steer the net and the grid and the balancing the grid. So if they meet now, we have to talk, collaborate, and come to agreements. So it's probably, in the end, you have to get to the same solutions, but you have a different way to get there.
Yeah, okay. And Gustav, how do you, as an organisation, work with other stakeholders, and what are you trying to achieve with the label in terms of the credibility and the robustness of the certification that you're giving out?
Yeah, I think as I earlier said, that everything builds on the criteria, and then but companies, energy users, they also look to do more, and this collaboration that Eva talked about also is key in that. And we work with different kind of players within the energy sector, but also the corporations and the companies such as Mercedes. We work with the NGOs that we grant funding to. We work with the energy sellers. We don't sell the energy, renewable energy ourselves, but we check the solar and wind and hydropower plants to check that if it's eligible for to sell as EKOenergy labeled energy. So it's a big puzzle, and what we want to achieve is a just transition that also supports those communities that are hit hardest by the climate crisis and by climate change, who has contributed the least to it. So EKOenergy, our eco label, is like a tool for that, to show international solidarity. And of course, we want to boost the green transition that we phase out fossil fuels, but yeah, taking all communities into account as well. Yeah.
Okay. Everyone is looking to present themselves as green these days, to the extent that they can get ahead of themselves sometimes and proclaim that they are before they actually are. So what are the dangers of greenwashing in this space particularly, and how can your organization help to avoid that danger?
Well, we are an environmental organization, and we have it's a standard. We had the criteria for pretty much the same criteria for the renewable energy for more than a decade. So it's stable, it's reliable, it's transparent. So it's the same. We have energy sellers in more than 90 countries, and so that means the eco label is available worldwide, and then the consumers know exactly what's in their energy. And I think the confusion and the sort of like risk of mistrust and bad communication come from one aspect is that energy sellers as well, they might sell EKOenergy labeled energy, but they also have other renewable energy products and services that they then sometimes brand themselves with different kinds of name, like green energy, and or like that it's not third party verified. So it's like these independent companies come up with independent services and products, and this might then confuse consumers and the markets.
Sure. Okay. We have some time for questions from the audience, if anyone has one. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the participants.
Oh, the microphone coming.
Thank you very much for this interesting panel. My name is Christine Tötzke. I'm from the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, Germany, and I'm responsible, among other regions, for Asia. And we support a lot of green infrastructure programs with India, for example, but with other countries as well. My question goes to the fact, what do you expect from governments to support the whole process, be it in Germany, be it in India, but also in the cooperation field, and what could they actually do wrong?
I'm happy to start with a positive example, actually, because we met at the Bundeswirtschaftsministerium several times, especially for the smart charging and integration of automotive and energy industry. And at least what we need is somebody to accelerate the process, that we define standards, and then in the end, rules and regulations. And that actually worked pretty well last year. So for me, that's a positive example. We need to get to standards. Otherwise, I have proprietary solutions. They cannot scale. They are too much effort for everybody involved. And there you can really help.
Yeah, I probably would just like to add to what Eva said, and that is that I completely agree that, while you may have the best policies of the government, but eventually if you do not have very robust frameworks for implementation, none of them work. And that's, I think, where the government and people who are responsible for implementing them need to come together. And it's also to create these partnerships with industry, essentially because you see, it's the carrot and stick. The stick is what the government brings in, but the carrot is you need to also incentivize these programs so that the industry is able to take them up. And programs such as, you talked about the eco-labeling program. So in order to make sure that people have informed decision-making tools available to them, so that they are able to eventually roll them out and adopt them in your practices. Otherwise, they will just remain there on the shelves and nothing is going to. So I think that both government as well as industry have an important role to play, and they need to speak to each other to make sure that they eventually deliver.
Do you think that government should be leading the way here, or
surely that's their, of course, government should always lead by example, and the nudges that are required to be given to the industry through incentive mechanisms or through jump-starting the markets, all of those things can be played, the roles can be played by the government. But eventually it is for the industry to also respond. Yeah. And we have seen very great examples, especially in the mobility sector, for example, when we were moving from, we have the Bharat stage 4 to stage, we did not even move to stage 5, we moved straight to stage 6. So the tightening of the standards were made sure, and the industry responded. Although initially there was a lot of back down from the industry, but eventually the government held its, they said that no, we want the industry to respond. We are not going to, back out, and the industry did respond. So that's where you are. So the standards and the industry, they need to work together.
And Eva, do you think that the industry is united on this? Well, two questions really. One, what's the role of industry in sort of encouraging the government to take this action, and two, are the different companies acting as a united force, or is there still quite a lot of disparity between the companies?
I think between the companies, we have connections within our, well, I don't want to call it bubble, but in our segments.
Yeah.
When we come to meet with different industries, sometimes it's good to have a moderator or somebody just inviting everybody to a table. And if I want to put innovations into real life, then I have to somehow moderate this process. And I'm very happy if I get somebody to help me, because it's even hard to get all those industries on one table and then standardize and then be fast.
Yeah. So that's the automotive industry. What about the automotive companies and the energy companies see eye to eye, or because obviously they come from completely different histories and they're sort of coming from different directions as well. So is there a lot of conflict or misunderstanding there?
I think it's also personally very interesting because you learn a lot, learn new partners, new business. The truth is there is a whole new area of business and it's not sorted out who has what role.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. And we'll see how, in Germany we would say this Bärenfell will be, how do you separate all these chances? And in the end it must be win-win for everybody involved. Yeah. Otherwise it's not happening. But there's still a little push and pull, who is in what role.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, over there first and then I'll continue.
Yes, so my name is Lea Garten. I'm a PhD student of environmental policy and governance, and I'm writing my thesis about specific aspects of the transition to e-mobility in Germany. And my question might be a little edgy, but I think it's always easier to talk about the potentials and benefits of e-mobility. And so my question would be, what would be your perspective on phasing out internal combustion engine cars? How could that be accelerated, or do you think it's necessary to take any steps to, that would be my question.
Which I guess is for you.
Well, I think we are committed to phase out of combustion engines with a little asterisk where conditions allow. because it has to go hand in hand. We have to work together with the customers. And that's exactly why we're investing in charging now, because the customers, depending on who you ask, but like 50% roughly say they don't have a good charging solution, so they are not switching to electric mobility, because if they don't know where to charge, then the mobility is in danger and they don't like it. So you have to come up with a solution that is convenient, safe, and then if you can even make it enjoyable or incentivize the customer mobility for free is our vision, if we do it right. And I think it's a win-win. It'll be like a flywheel. But we are not there. If you look at China, they already have like more than 50% EVs, new registration. So that's a flywheel.
Yeah.
In Europe, we are fighting. We are like not at the tipping point, interested in India. But it will turn region by region, and we have to provide the solution.
And we've had a number of governments in Europe, the UK being one, but also the EU sort of introducing targets and then sort of walking back from them a little bit. And I've heard a number of people in the car industry say this is not helpful at all to keep changing the goalposts. So is that a challenge for you, or are we already so far down the path of this that progress is inevitable?
Well, being an engineer, I think from physics the solution is pretty clear. But then again, we are also a business, and that's why I'm also looking at governments. You can help us with not changing goals, not switching targets, because that gives stability. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Christoph Balz. I'm Policy Director of a German NGO, German Watch. And I would ask a quite different question. Would you foresee a megatrend towards autonomous self-driving cars? Because this would dramatically change probably the business model between the car industry and the electric sector. And wouldn't it be necessary, if you see this megatrend, wouldn't it be necessary to take account of this in the planning process already now?
I would say it's a little too early to answer this question. We are right now discussing our strategy for 2035, but I'm not allowed to talk about this yet. But you're having an interesting point, and obviously technology is enabling new things, and there's interesting combinations we foresee.
Okay. The guy at the end with the glasses.
Thank you very much. My name is Wolfgang Willkommen. I'm an architect, consultant, and university teacher in different countries. And 38 years ago, I had the chance to build a charging station for e-vehicles on the Industrial Fair of Hanover in 1988. And my question refers to, let's say, a technical and organizational issue, which is the charging itself. What we did in those days was not hanging the vehicles for a longer time to a cable, but just exchanging empty batteries for full batteries. Is that too naive nowadays? Because car industry, every company wants to make its own charging system, or at least, as I know, the Chinese do it, at least for the fleets of e-vehicles, think about exchanging batteries.
It's a very interesting point. NIO is probably one very prominent example of switching batteries with switching stations. It is an interesting concept. However, also the battery is the most expensive piece in your car. It's like the heart of the vehicle. And it defines literally the length of the car, the width of the car, the height of the car. It defines the whole looks, design, and characteristics of the vehicle. That's why it's hard for a brand like Mercedes, who takes pride in designing every little detail of the car, to take this essential piece like standard mass from somewhere. So I'm very interested also personally monitoring how this concept develops. Might be a future in like more industrial vehicles. But for luxury passenger cars, with the battery technology evolving and now charging times like improving. It's not a big deal anymore. The new vehicles, they take less of a break than you need a break as a human. So I think the path is more towards high integration on that passenger car side. But we'll monitor.
Yeah. Sanjay, you want?
Can I just add to, that's a very interesting point that you make. And when we are looking at our, transition towards electric mobility, we have a combination, charging, swapping of batteries. We are doing a combination of all of these to make sure that our transition towards cleaner sources of mobility are met. And now I would not get into, obviously, crossroads with Mercedes-Benz for the comforts and for the branding that they have. But definitely, as far as this is something which in India we are looking at and we are currently following, especially with the passenger mobility, movement of people from place to place. So we're looking at this. It's a combination, as I said.
Right.
I should mention that our partner was Mercedes in those days, and Siemens and
Yeah,
AG.
of course, yeah. Sorry, we're running short of time, so lady there and then this
All
guy
right,
here.
thank you. Interesting conversation so far. My name is Chemela from Nigeria. I run a solar company in Nigeria. And when we started out, so we focus mostly in rural, peri-urban communities that are disconnected from the grid. And when we started out, we had issue with acceptance because of a lot of myths around solar system, how it works, and all of that. Now we are talking EVs in countries like Nigeria, Africa, and there is an issue with acceptance because, of course, if we are discussing just transition, we need to also consider this people in rural communities in Africa and all of that. Now, I want to know if there are programs designed around education, sensitization, because they have to accept this, for us to be able to get it to them. So are there programs, strategies designed around that? Thank you.
Yeah, I could chip in on this as we work with NGOs, local NGOs, a lot in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and in South America. So when we grant this financing for example, solar projects in rural areas, that also involves also educating the local people on how to maintain the systems that are installed. So it's also involving the local people and supporting their livelihoods, and often there's also jobs created automatically from these installations.
Okay, right, so that gong means we have 3 minutes left, so I'm sorry we're not going to have time for your questions. I'll just ask each of you quickly to sum up where you think we are in the EV transition, particularly when it comes to charging, and when we will get to to a fully electric mobility system. So I'll start with you, Eva.
I think we are on our way, and the vehicle gets a whole new purpose. We'll combine, again, the vehicle into the electric grid, enabling a transition to renewable energy and helping with this. And we as Mercedes-Benz, we don't take a wait-and-see approach, but we actively push. So we invest in high-power charging ourselves. We have a service that ensures every charge you do is with green energy. If it's not, we buy those certificates that new energy is fed into the grid. We also work on home solutions and the bi-directional stuff, and on fleet solutions. So we are taking a very serious approach to enable this shift.
Great. Sanjay?
Yeah, so, in our country, what we're saying is that we have bulk of our infrastructure which is yet to be put in place. That's a developing country, story of a developing country. So since that gives us an edge that to make sure that whatever we do is cleaner and sustainable. With that aspiration in mind, we are making sure that whatever we build for the future is climate responsive and sustainable.
Perfect. Gustav?
I could give a broader recommendation or like the situation that many companies and energy users, they are looking for solutions, and they are investing a lot of time and effort into it. And there's a lot of noise around in the world, in the political crisis and wars and that. But I would like to encourage all business leaders to look beyond their internal organizations, look into the civil society and NGOs and non-profits, because they usually sit on a lot of know-how and had the networks and connections in around the world, in rural areas as well, and in those places where help is most needed. So I strongly recommend everybody to remember to also look beyond their own organizations and cooperate with non-profits.
Okay, thank you. It just remains for me to ask you to thank our panel, Sanjay, Eva, and Gustav. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.